Do you often wonder about how a certain isopod in your collection happened to originate in the hobby? Have you ever thought about the history of the species? Maybe all you need is a more in-depth care guide than you can find on the internet, even after combing pages of Google searches. In this video, I aim to answer these questions and more by providing some insight into one of the most well-known isopods in the hobby, the Porcellio laevis dairy cow. Porcellio laevis, commonly called the swift woodlouse, dairy cow isopod, or smooth slater in Australia, is a species of woodlouse in the genus Porcellio. As the species name laevis suggests, the swift woodlouse is a species that is capable of quick bursts of speed when provoked. This species of isopod is distinctly large, measuring up to 20 millimeters, about 1 inch, but often longer, with a smooth dorsal surface. Porcellio laevis, having this smooth dorsal surface, separates it visually from many other species in the Porcellio genus. The males can be identified by their long spear-shaped uropods or butt spikes. It's commonly kept as a pet due to its somewhat easy care requirements and is used quite extensively in the reptile hobby as a cleanup crew and bioactive snake or large lizard enclosures. This species is easy to keep and can be easily established in their chosen enclosure within a few weeks. The dairy cow isopod is the commonly used name for this readily available piebald strain of the Porcellio laevis species. P. laevis, as it's often referred to, was first recorded in Britain in the 13th century, but it originated in North Africa. Although identifiable evidence of woodlice is rarely found in archaeological deposits, subfossil remains of P. laevis were recorded from a medieval infill pit at Stonar in East Kent. The processes by which the remains were preserved in the archaeological context are described by Gerling in 1979 as involving the permeation of calcium carbonate into the exoskeleton by mixing it with hard water in the waterlogged conditions which it was found. The Porcellio laevis has a near worldwide distribution thanks to modern shipping and has been introduced to Australia, North Africa, South America, Western Asia, Japan, and some Pacific islands. This species is found under rocks and fallen logs in damp areas and is otherwise rarely encountered. Records from Ireland and Britain place them in agricultural areas like gardens, farms, and stables, where they can be found in dung and compost piles. In the U.S., the Porcellio laevis is found extensively on the West Coast in states such as California, Oregon, and Washington. The way in which the Porcellio laevis births live young is something that it has in common with every other terrestrial isopod species, and this isopod directly develops from yolky eggs. Both the eggs and juveniles develop within a brood pouch called a marsupium until the first juvenile stage. The use of the marsupium is believed to eliminate the need for there to be an external water source for early development since it is filled with fluid from the mother isopod. This is considered some of the most extensive parental care among terrestrial arthropods. The Porcellio laevis is known to exhibit polymorphism. This is sometimes referenced informally as morphs. Multiple polymorphic traits have been line-bred or isolated to produce colonies of Porcellio laevis that can widely vary in color and pattern. The dairy cow, or panda isopod in Germany, is a perfect example of this. The recessive gene that results in a piebald mutation is responsible for the striking pattern and coloration that is so distinctive. The piebald form of a Porcellio laevis, with its black and white coloration, is indeed reminiscent of a dairy cow. This piebald form is sometimes referred to as a Dalmatian gene by some keepers. It is caused by an absence of pigmentation in portions of the animal creating a pattern against the pigmented sections. An interesting behavior of these isopods is that the Porcellio laevis is one of several species of isopods known to use alternating turns as a defensive mechanism. This means they will run in a maze-like pattern to confuse or avoid perceived threats. The Armadillidium vulgare is also observed to exhibit this pattern, and it is believed that more frequent exposures to predators causes the Porcellio laevis to engage in more frenzied alternating turns as a learned response. Which is another way of saying that when we take the lids off of our bins, they will run around like crazy isopods. The Porcellio laevis dairy cow has been noted to enjoy substantial amounts of protein and calcium, which is believed to aid in their ability to grow larger than some Porcellio species. And this feeding response has been one of the reasons that so many reptile keepers utilize them to clean up the shed skin, leftover food, and waste in their enclosures. Please keep in mind that the nutritional needs of Porcellio laevis will need to be met, or they can go after smaller, softer-skinned inhabitants. This leads me to the care guide portion of this video. While a lot of hobbyists keep dairy cows for cleanup crews and have them thriving in their bioactive enclosures, there are some of us that keep these animals just as pets. To ensure the health of your colony, you will need a well-ventilated container to house your dairy cows. For this, the standard 6-quart Sterilite shoe bin containers that you could find at Walmart, Big Lots, or Targets is usually used. As your colony grows, you will likely need to expand to a 15-quart container. You can, of course, use something bigger or fancier, as you're the one that has to look at your option. Ventilation is key to keeping isopods alive, so I recommend a 1-inch hole covered with screen on each side of your bin to promote airflow across, as well as an extra ventilation hole in the bin's lid, if you can, opposite from the moisture area. You will want to keep your dairy cows at a comfortable temperature, which most of us equate to room temperature, or roughly 65 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, or 16 to 32 degrees Celsius. These are hardy isopods and can survive at temperatures below or above this range, but to avoid a decline in population, I have found that this is a pretty good Goldilocks zone. The humidity for the isopods needs to be above 50% to ensure proper molting, but too damp will end up in the isopods drowning, since they won't be able to completely dry their gills as needed. One important thing to remember is that isopods will eat their substrate, so this has to be given some thought. I recommend using an isopod substrate found online in pet stores or through Facebook groups, or you can make your own in accordance to those recipes that are found online. You can always buy Reptisoil or Scott's brand soil and add nutritional supplementation to that. You will need to add leaves, rotting wood, or wood pellets to break down into a nutrient-dense material if you make your own substrate. But this can be done easily, and you can customize this. You will also need a wood hide for your dairy cows, because while they like to bury themselves, sometimes you can often see them out and about on the surface. You can supplement feed once your colony has grown in size if they're eating through your leaf litter almost as fast as you replace it. I like to go with a high-protein fish flake, such as Fluval Black Soldier Fly formula. Since I use it for my fish and aquatic shrimp, I have it on hand, but you could use any quality fish flake. We also feed with Repashy Morning Wood or Bug Burger, brewer's yeast, bee pollen granules, dried minnow, and various vegetable scraps, including squash, carrots, zucchini, and pumpkin. Keep in mind that isopods with lighter color patterns, such as the dairy cows, will often show what they have been eating through their exoskeleton. So if you notice them with a brown, orange, or pinkish tinge, the culprit is usually their food. Finally, make sure you add calcium to their bin, either in the form of cuttlebone, calcium powder without vitamin D, flaked or powdered oyster shell, or even limestone. The isopods will utilize this, and they need it to promote good exoskeleton growth. You're more than welcome to add any bioactive decorations or little miniature hides like lotus pods, palm flower pods, elephant ear pods. A lot of people use magnolia pods. Just remember that when you take things from outside, find them in a pesticide-free area. And when you bring them inside, before putting them in your enclosure, try to freeze them for at least 3 hours to ensure that you're not bringing in any pests to your isopod colony, which can destroy it. And oftentimes, the pests, such as mites, can go from bin to bin, and then you have a serious problem on your hands that you won't want to deal with. Thank you for watching, and I hope if you like this video, please consider giving us a thumbs up, or comment below with any tips or tricks for dairy cow isopods that you would recommend. Until then, please enjoy the footage of my greedy isopods as they demolish this pile of fish flakes.